Hello everyone, it is me, Emerald. But you already knew that. It says it right there. I don't know why us YouTubers feel the need to tell you our names in every intro, but we do. So you guys know Disney, right? You know, Disney, they make some great movies, some pretty bad sitcoms, some decent cartoons. And today I'm talking about one of their cartoons. A show about a girl who gets sucked into a box with her friends and gets transported to a world where frogs talk. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about another hit cartoon from Disney. Today we're talking about Amphibia. Disclaimer, by the way, if you don't want to be spoiled about everything that happens in Amphibia, go watch the show before you watch this. It's on Disney+. Let's go! Yes, the plot of Amphibia. Alright, so the plot of Amphibia is pretty simple. The plot of Amphibia is that this girl, Anne Boon Choi, with her two friends, Sasha Waybright and Marcy Wu, stole a music box called the Calamity Box. And when they open it, they get transported to another dimension, a world ruled by anthropomorphic amphibians. And when Anne lands there, she meets the Planters, a family of frogs that live in an old country town called Wartwood. The Planters consists of Hop Hop, the grandfather, Sprig, Anne's best friend and Hop Hop's grandson, and Polly, Hop Hop's granddaughter, Sprig's sister, and the youngest of the Planters. Also, we'll be getting into what happened to Sprig and Polly's parents in a little bit. The first season mostly consists of Anne and the Planters bonding and getting used to each other and going on a bunch of adventures together in Wartwood. But we also get to see a little glimpse of what happened to Sasha, Anne's other friend. Whilst Anne came across a relatively nice and decent town, Sasha, however, was not so lucky. She came across the Toads. You see, the Toads are pretty much big, muscly warriors, mostly, and Sasha got captured by them and imprisoned in Toad Tower, which is pretty much a base for the Toads, and it's ran by a guy named Captain Grime. And despite what you and me thought at the beginning, no, Captain Grime is not the leader of all the Toads. Captain Grime apparently has been constantly questioning on who sent Sasha and why she's here, and, well, no one sent Sasha. Anne just opened the box and they all got sucked in. But one day, while Sasha's imprisoned, a heron, which is one of the most dangerous creatures in Amphibia, attacks Toad Tower and Sasha fights it off with no weapon or anything. Grime then offers that Sasha could live like a queen and help Grime lead the Toads, because before Sasha showed up, Grime wasn't a very good leader. And if Sasha does help him lead the Toads, in return, Grime will help her find the music box to get back home. After we see what happened to Sasha, we see a few more adventures with Anne and the Planters. But then comes the episode called The Bizarre Bazaar. In this episode, Anne and Sprig discover something called the Bizarre Bazaar. It's pretty much this chaotic place where anything goes. And there's this woman there who apparently has a bunch of artifacts that look almost exactly like the carvings on the music box. So maybe she knows a thing or two about it. Too bad she's out to lunch for most of the episode, and when she finally comes back, the Bizarre Bazaar shuts down. After that, Anne and Sprig, of course, get their asses saved by Hop Hop, who then buries the Calamity Box, and then lies to Anne, saying he gave it to some contacts. After that, and a few more adventures, we discover that Anne was voted Frog of the Year somehow. Anne is then put in charge of planning the party that'll celebrate the fact that she was Frog of the Year. And after some typical cartoon chaos at the party, guess who shows up again? That's right, Sasha's back. And she's finally meeting Anne again. They haven't met since they first got sucked in. So of course, they're pretty excited. Sasha then invites Anne to another party. This time, it'll be held at Toad Tower. Sasha and Grime then take the entirety of Wartwood to have that party. And then Sasha and Anne have some alone time. To catch up and such. And then Sasha reveals to Anne that the real reason they're throwing this party is to execute Hop Pop due to actions in an episode prior. You see, in a prior episode, Hop Pop ran for mayor, and apparently, even though he didn't win, he inspired rebellions across all of Amphibia, so they want to execute him now. Anne and the Planters help all of Wartwood escape, or at least almost escape, but whoops, they got caught by Sasha, Grime, and their Toad army. They then get taken atop Toad Tower, where Hop Pop's execution will take place. But after Spring and Anne finally stand up to Sasha, Grime suggests trial by combat. If Anne wins against Sasha, they get to go free. But if Sasha wins, Hop Pop gets capped. They both agree to this term, and after a long battle, Grime reveals that, even though Anne wins, he's not really gonna do that, and he still tries to kill Hop Pop. But then they discover that some guy called One-Eye Wally, he's from a previous episode, planted a bunch of bombs while they were trying to escape, and now Toad Tower is blowing up. Sasha almost lets herself die because she realizes Anne might be better off without her. But don't worry, Grime saved her. But nothing can save Anne from those mental scars. So season 1 was good. I thought there might have been too much, episodic episodes, and to be honest, I didn't find most of them that funny, but overall a decent start to the show, especially with the season finale. Now on to season 2. Season 2 starts off with us discovering that the Planters and Anne are going on a road trip to Newtopia. Newtopia pretty much being the, heart of Amphibia. It's like the big kingdom in any RPG. That's where the good loot is. So yeah, the first half of season 1 is mainly a road trip adventure, which I am all down for. I like getting to see more of this wacky world. But also, we get to see what Sasha and Grime are up to. We learn that all but 2 of Grime's soldiers have abandoned them all, and that Grime is living out in a shack in the woods and is in complete despair. Sasha less so. But she is still in despair after what happened at Toad Tower. But you guys can't keep wallowing in your sadness for too long, cause General Yunnan shows up, who...
My name is General Yunnan, Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of Ragnar the Wretched, and the youngest Newt to ever achieve the rank of General in the Great Newtopian Army!
Yeah, she's that. I'm so fucking stupid. Sasha and Grime narrowly escape Yunnan and state that they're gonna overthrow the king right after Grime finishes his garbage TV show. After we see Sasha and Grime do their thing, we get to see Anne and the Planters finally arrive at Newtopia, and we discover that Anne's other friend, Marcy, is actually working for the king of Newtopia. Therefore, she's working for the king of Amphibia. We also discover that Marcy is nothing like Sasha. Marcy is a complete and total nerd, but we'll get into her later. After Anne and the Planters get led into Newtopia, and we get to meet Lady Olivia, someone else who also works for the king of Amphibia, the king then literally sends them on a scavenger hunt just to tell them to bring him the Planters. After they solve the scavenger hunt, Marcy brings the Planters to the king, and we finally get to meet King Andreas, my favorite character in the show, but we'll get into him later. After meeting the king, the Planters and Anne discover that they pretty much have infinite funds while the king and Marcy research the music box. After some fun adventures in Newtopia, the king finally reveals what he's discovered about the music box. He states that it's powered by 3 gems, and in order to recharge said gems, the music box needs to be brought to 3 temples that'll test your heart, your wit, and of course, your strength. Anne goes back to Wartwood to, get the music box and keep it safe while Marcy prepares to go to the first temple. And also, remember how I said that Hop Pop buried the music box and then lied to Anne about it? Yeah, this comes back now. Hop Pop tries to get the music box from where he buried it, only to discover that it fucking vanished. After discovering this, Anne briefly runs away, but then they kinda make up after finding the music box. Then Marcy comes back and they're ready to go off to the first temple. We discover that Anne and Hop Pop haven't exactly made up like they may have seemed in After the Rain, but eventually they do kinda come to an understanding. But also, let's talk about how Marcy is in this episode. See, the first temple challenges your wit, so of course Marcy is just prime candidate for that. She's the smartest one of the three girls. But we also discover that Marcy has something she likes to call being in the zone, where she pretty much kinda ignores everyone else and her own safety, and she finally realizes how bad that is when she's forced to play real-life Flipward. Also, Flipward is like the Amphibia version of chess, and apparently Marcy is so good that she apparently even beat King Andreas at it. That's gonna come back later. After failing the final test in the temple, we discover that she didn't fail. She succeeded. This temple apparently doesn't just test your wit, it also tests your humility, and she gets to charge the stone. After that, in the next episode, like the episode right after that one, we discover that there's a robot who has befriended Polly and the planters named Frobo. So that's pretty epic, ain't it? After meeting Frobo and all that, they decide to go to the second temple, the one that tests heart. We also see that lady from the Bazaar again. Her name's Valeriana, and turns out she's a part of a secret order that swore their lives to protecting and learning about the music box. She also knows where the second temple is, but after Anne does the horrible action of saving someone from an avalanche and throwing her coat away to save everyone else from a fucking demon monster, Valeriana says she's not worthy to know where the temple is. After Anne rightfully calls Valeriana out, Valeriana then teleports them to the top of the mountain and reveals she knows a lot about Anne, a lot she shouldn't know. She even knows that Anne snores, which is just... how? Okay, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get an answer on this when the series is over, but it's so weird right now. But anyway, after Valeriana almost falls, it turns out that this was all a test. Turns out all of this was actually staged to happen, the avalanche being attacked by a monster, forcing her to sacrifice her coat, and her admitting to the fact she stole the music box. It was all planned. Reason for that was to see if Anne had the right heart, which she does. Valeriana then charges the stone, but not all the way, and that's gonna come back later. Don't you worry. Also, during all this, Sasha, Grime, and the two soldiers that didn't abandon them, whose names I always forget, have gotten the Toad Lords, who are the people who, lead the toads, to all meet together so they can all conspire to, overthrow the king and rule all of Amphibia. But you see, the little wrench in their plan is that it's very dangerous and not easy to do. So they make a deal. If they can get Barrel's Warhammer, then they get to lead the toads to overthrow the king. Turns out this guy called Barrel the Brave left it there after he died, fighting off a beast. And it's said that whoever can lift the hammer and fight off the beast is the true leader of toads. And guess who does that? It's Sasha. It's Sasha. But she finally gets the two toads that didn't abandon them when Toad Tower fell to abandon them. But even though they leave, they have the rest of Toad kind to back them up, so that's pretty neat. Then comes the third temple, which tests strength. And guess who shows up? Sasha and Grime. That's right, they show up and are pretty much gonna use Anne and the planters to help take over Amphibia, but they pretend like they're trying to make up with him, and Sasha does actually kinda make up with Anne. Then they finally get all the stones charged, and after they have some dinner and a battle of the bands where the basically sends Anne off, because this is pretty much the last day she's going to be spending with them. They finally go to King Andrius to, send them home. By the way, at the end of Barrow's Warhammer, I probably should have mentioned that it's revealed that, King Andrius has an evil eldritch demon living in his basement. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. So yeah, if you can't tell already, King Andrius is evil. But they don't know that yet, because before King Andrius can betray them, Sasha and Grime betray them. Sasha and Grime straight up yoink the music box and then signal all the toads who snuck in to launch the assault. And then they capture King Andrius. Then Anne just calls Sasha out, calls her a horrible person, and then Sasha, in retaliation, tries to send them home, but she doesn't know how, and when she opens up the music box, nothing happens. So instead, Sasha sends them to the dungeon, where they're then saved by General Yunnan, and then Lady Olivia opens a secret exit, and they then hide in an old diner that belonged to one of Hop Pop's friends. Then after stopping Sasha's attack, they then find out that King Andrius is evil and plans on invading the human realm. Sasha and Grime actually discover this a little bit before, and then Sasha realizes that she's not only, taking over Amphibia, but she's also actually stopping an insane madman from invading another world. But anyway, after discovering that, King Andrius is evil, King Andrius then reveals that Marcy actually got them stranded in Amphibia on purpose. Apparently, Marcy's dad got a new job in another state, and they were gonna move. Marcy, not wanting this to happen, finds out about the Calamity Box, or the music box as I've been calling it, and then discovers that it can send things to other worlds, and then gets her and her friends sent to another world. So everyone's been lying except for Anne. But after some fighting, Frobo gets smashed into little itty-bitty pieces, but after that, Spring gets dropped out a window. Hey y'all, remember when I said that Anne didn't get the, gym charged all the way? Yeah, Anne turns into that, what I like to call Calamity Anne, which is pretty much when she goes full OP mode and punches King Andrius in the face. She then passes out after doing this, and turns out Spring was actually saved by Marcy, who then opens a portal back to the human realm. And right when you think they're all gonna make it through...
Marcy, hurry! I just need to...
Now look what you've made me do.
Oh dear. Yeah, Marcy got stabbed by King Andrius. But everyone else got sent to the human realm except Sasha. So everyone else but Sasha and Marcy. So the Planters and Anne, pretty much. So what did I think of Season 2? I thought it was pretty epic. Definitely my favorite out of the seasons. But Season 3 isn't done yet, so that opinion could change. I like how it began to focus more on the actual plot, rather than just episodic adventures. There's quite a few in there, but not nearly as much as Season 1, and the ones in here are actually pretty funny. I'm sorry, Season 1, you're still pretty decent. So yeah, Season 2 is good. Now into Season 3, and Jesus Christ, I'm just realizing now how long this recording is. It's longer than most True Critique episodes. So let's speed this up, shall we? So, in Season 1, Anne finally gets home and finally meets her parents, who, whilst originally being overprotective of her, discover that she's grown and changed, and oh my god, King Andrius sent a fucking predator robot after her to kill her. So after that, we get to see Sasha and Grime, who fled to Wardwood after seeing Marcy get stabbed. Sasha, after invading Anne's privacy and reading her diary, discovers just how bad of a control freak she was, and finally, says she's gonna protect Wardwood. So pretty much, she's starting a rebellion in Amphibia against the king, so that's pretty cool. After that, Anne discovers some blacklight writing on a vase in the museum. Polly sort of fixes Frobo, and, oh yeah, Mr. X, let's talk about him. Mr. X, who may look familiar, because he's voiced by RuPaul, is a secret agent who's hunting down the planters. Then, oh boy, let's go into Olivia and Yunnan, shall we? This episode focuses on just that, Olivia and Yunnan. We also learned that Olivia was part of a family line that pretty much swore to protect the nature of Amphibia, and not to be rude, but she's not doing a very good job. But anyway, Olivia and Yunnan then decide to try and save Marcy, who they know is still at least trying to be kept alive. Yunnan also heard rumors that she was being guarded by a monster, and whilst it's definitely the evil eye demon, you're gonna learn what it is in a second, I have a question. Rumors from who? Like, the only people we know who are in the castle right now are those 3 guys who we see and I never brought up, and Olivia and Yunnan, and a bunch of robots. We do not know anyone else in this castle. But anyway, let's continue. Olivia and Yunnan slowly sneak past and destroy some guards, and eventually they find their way to Marcy's chamber, where she's being kept in a tank, and is also acting strange and can't walk when she's pulled out because she's been stabbed and also hasn't used her legs in like at least a week. But then they begin seeing projections of like their worst fears, and then after destroying the things making the projections, they get caught anyway by King Andreas. Andreas then reveals that the creature in his basement is actually the core. And listen, Andreas, I gotta say, I'm familiar with keeping creatures in my basement. Please send. Apparently the core is made up of the greatest minds in Amphibia, and Marcy's just shown herself to be a prime candidate to be its new host. Why? Because she beat King Andreas in a game of Flipward, and I'm going to guess other reasons. The core then pretty much possesses Marcy in what I can only say is an extremely fucking creepy scene. That scream, dude. Oh my god. So yeah, Marcy's the host for evil hive mind demon now. So that's a problem. In the next episode, we discover that there's a scientist that could actually help the planters get back home because they've discovered a way to travel 2 worlds, kind of. But that scientist also kind of just wants to dissect the planters and become rich. So that scientist's intern is actually the one who's going to be helping them. Also, in Froggy Little Christmas, we get to see the planters learn about Christmas. And I'm bringing this up because we get some King Andreas stuff and we get to see evil Marcy again. We also see Anne finally tell Sasha and Marcy's parents where their children are, and also apparently Sasha's parents are divorced. I guess that explains some of the bad behavior. But anyway, what did I think of season 3? Well, it's not done so far, but so far I thought it had a bit of problems in the beginning, but overall I've liked it and I think it's pretty epic. Alright, so overall I like the plot of Amphibia and I think all the seasons are good, with season 1 being my least favorite and season 2 being my most favorite. And Jesus Christ, this part about me telling you about the plot is fucking 20 minutes long. This is gonna be a long one, ladies and gentlemen. So let's try and get through the characters next.
Do you guys feel that?
Starting to feel a bit antsy.
Alright, so the characters of Amphibia. I generally liked them. Thought they were all pretty epic, as some might say. So let's start by talking about Anne Boonchoi. Anne in the human world was a pretty not great student most of the time. She didn't get very good grades, and she was often playing video games or something in class, although she probably was like a C student at worst. Also in the beginning she had some toxic views on friendship that Sasha kinda implanted into her, but she eventually got over those. She's also willing to put herself in danger to help others. That's why she had the Gem of Heart go in her, cause she had the big Heart. Also, every time I say heart, I think of the fucking Captain Planet girl. Also, Anne was in varsity tennis. I just thought I'd bring that up. Alright, so on to Sprig. Sprig is a wide-eyed, adventurous boy who wants to do things like prove he's responsible and buy the right gift for his crush. So yeah, Sprig's pretty cool. Now on to Polly. Polly's a pretty cool character. She's kinda like the infant that's smarter than an infant should be, but not like to the extent of someone like Stewie Griffin. Like, she still very much acts like a child. She also befriends Frobo, as brought up before, and she gets legs by the end of the second season, something I did not bring up before. Now on to Hopadiah Planter, aka Hop Pop. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. Hop Pop's the only, like, parent Sprig and Polly have in their life. And I'd say he's pretty responsible and also pretty stubborn about, like, sticking to tradition. But Hop Hop is usually like a voice of reason. He also did not get along well with Anne in the beginning. So next, let's talk about Sasha. Sasha is another human that was also one of Anne's best friends. She's also not a very good friend. She was always peer pressuring Anne or Marcy into doing things they didn't really want to do, including stealing the music box, but that was not entirely her fault. Sasha also appears to be like the jock of the team. She was able to lift Barrel's Warhammer, which some of the best toads couldn't even lift. She was able to stand in a room where the gravity was like increased by like tenfold. She was able to fight off a heron, which is like the most dangerous creature in Amphibia. So yeah, Sasha is pretty strong and pretty toxic. Though she does eventually learn to kind of get rid of her toxic, manipulative ways throughout the series. Also, I think I brought this up before, her parents are divorced. Alright, so anyway, let's go on to Marcy. Head of the chess club, master RTS player, straight A student except for gym because she was reading in class. Yeah, Marcy's like my second favorite character in the show, and I say second favorite character. Marcy is very big brain. She also has something she likes to call being in the zone, when it's really when she just kind of disregards anyone else around here and can put them in mortal danger if it means she can solve a fucking Rubik's Cube. She's also the entire reason Anne and Sasha are in Amphibia, because she found out the music box could transport people to other worlds and just immediately took that opportunity. That's because her parents told her that they got a job out of state, and Marcy, not wanting to be torn away from her lifelong friends, stranded them in another world. So yeah, Marcy has some abandonment issues. She's also just a proper nerd. She likes things like D&D, Creatures and Caverns, JRPGs, and Legend of Zelda. I keep getting these. Legends of Zelnoth. So yeah, overall, I liked Marcy. She was a pretty cool character. Alright, on to King Andreas, the overall best character in the show. No denying. Ignore the child murdering part. I also might say that I am in some way biased to the fact that I love him so much because Keith David voices him, and I really like Keith David. But yeah, King Andreas is originally portrayed as being somewhat childish and, not very, proper like a king should be. But eventually we discover he's just a cold-blooded killer with a thirst for invasion. He's also got a demon creature living in his basement, as I stated before. He's also a rage gamer. Yeah, he's a rage gamer that drinks Mountain Dew. I'm not kidding.
Dang it! It's the stupid controller's fault. I was so close to...
Alright, so now let's talk about Lady Olivia, one of the king's most trusted servants. She's a part of an order of amphibians who swore to protect the nature of Amphibia. She didn't succeed. She's a very proper and fancy woman, which is why she gets so annoyed with King Andreas' antics. She's also attached to Marcy as she tries to save Marcy in the episode Olivia and Yunnan. And while we're at it, let's talk about Yunnan. Yunnan is the youngest general in the Utopian army, as she likes to brag about. So yeah, if you can't tell, she's very cocky, and she's also not very good at working with other people, as she just cut off her entire army, despite the fact that she so brags about having the rank of general. But anyway. Oh, also, let's talk about Captain Grime. Captain Grime is pretty much Sasha's partner in crime in Amphibia. I probably should have brought him up earlier. He also kinda acts like a more brutal Uncle Iroh in some ways. But overall, he's a pretty cool guy. He's got a giant hammer as a weapon. Alright, now that we're done with Amphibia, let's talk about the human world characters. I say, like there's a bunch, but we're only talking about 2, who are Anne's parents. So let's start with Anne's mom. We learn that Anne's mom is very strict and protective, especially after they leave Amphibia and finally come home. She's also very open about her Thai culture. She even runs a Thai restaurant called Thai Go. Now let's move on to Anne's dad. Anne's dad isn't nearly strict as Anne's mom. Also, I must say that I love his voice. Also, Anne's dad is a gamer, which I think is just a really silly detail. But anyway, now that we've gone through all of the characters that are important, let's move on to the animation.
Enemies. It's weird, but hey, it's grown on me. Bugs, frogs, newts, and toads. Gonna be a bumpy road. Flies for snacks, worms for lunch. I think I actually love this one. It's no big deal, yeah, no big deal.
The animation in Amphibia is pretty good. It's all pretty, good looking. But then you get to the Super Anne fight. The one where Anne gets glowing blue hair and the animation just pops off. The animation goes pretty crazy there. I should also say, before I get into the character designs, that I really like the backgrounds in this show. There's something about the way the backgrounds are drawn that just look really good to me. Okay, on to the character designs now. For the human designs, they all have kinda noodle arms and legs. And I will say, I liked Anne and her friends' designs, but when I first watched the show, I didn't really like the way the frogs were drawn. Characters like Sprig and Hop Hop and all of them, I did not like how they looked. But I will say, as I watched the show, the designs grew on me. I'd say my favorite design so far is probably Super Anne, the Anne with the glowing blue hair. It's just a few simple changes, but they all look really cool. I will say one design that was really disappointing to me was probably the cores. You see, the core, when we first see it, everyone, including myself, assumed that we were just seeing its eyes and it was all covered in shadow. But when the core actually appears with no shadow over it, it's literally just a ball with eyes. Which me and a lot of people thought it was going to be some big creature. So yeah, that was a little disappointing, but it's only on screen for a minute in total before it possesses Marcy. Oh yeah, I also liked Possess Marcy's design, or Darcy as the credits call her. I also like the posing in this show. A lot of great character poses. Some of the facial expressions in this show are just fantastic. A lot of them come from Hop Hop, but occasionally you find them in other places. So yeah, I really like the animation in Amphibia, and overall I've liked pretty much every aspect about it, so you can guess how my final, conclusion is gonna go. So let's not waste any more time and just get to the conclusion, because this is already a very long episode.
Maybe we should put pineapple on it. Seems like a natural fit.
Don't you dare talk about pineapple on my pizza. Ever.
So, in conclusion, what did I think of Amphibia? I thought it was a pretty good show, with some pretty amazing animation in some places, some fun writing, some interesting characters, and some cool lore. And as you all know, I don't give ratings, I just say whether or not I'd recommend a show. So would I recommend it? Yeah, I'd recommend this show. It's pretty good. I think you should watch it. It's on Disney+. Although I guess if you've seen this video but you didn't watch the show, you kinda have the whole story spoiled for you. So sorry. Still watch it though. But anyway, that was me. I'm Emerald, and I'll see you all next time.
Dang it!